We're going to tell you again about that crash from Daytona coming up. But right now, let's get to some politics. The Obama administration issuing dire warnings on what will happen if automatic spending cuts take place on March 1st. Now, on Tuesday, President Obama said public safety would be hurt by making it harder for first responders like police, firefighters to handle emergencies. And yesterday, Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood warned that air traffic control towers would be shut down, causing delays for travelers across the country. And speaking yesterday on Fox News, Republican Senator Rand Paul accused President Obama of using, quote, histrionics to make his case.
The sequester is a slowdown in the rate of growth of government. It's the least we can do. Our country is drowning in a sea of debt, borrowing $50,000 a second. We have to slow down spending. And for the president to use this histrionics is really, I think, beneath the office of the presidency.
Let's bring in now Dee Banky. She's a former campaign aide and White House aide to President George W. Bush, and Bernard Whitman, former pollster to President Clinton and author of 52 Reasons to Vote for Obama. Good to see both of you.
Thanks for having us.
And Dee, I'm going to start with you because I want to ask you if you feel that the president is highlighting the human factor of these forced spending cuts by having those first responders behind him at that press conference, or do you find Rand Paul's comments with total valid, I'll say?
Well, I kind of think it's more like it's Oscar weekend, and you've got Argo, you've got Lincoln, and then you've got the show by President Obama. I mean, lining everyone up. I mean, it really is just a show and for effect.
But isn't that what they do? Isn't that what presidents do? I mean, he's saying, listen, remember that people are going to lose jobs, and if not jobs, they're going to lose lots of hours.
We're going to lose everything if we don't start cutting spending. I mean, and this isn't even enough. Not only should we be for sequester, it should be super sequester, and these were his cuts. These are the cuts that he wanted. I do have to agree with the TSA cut. That's a good one. We should just privatize that because that's been a disaster from the beginning.
All right, Bernard, let me talk to you about this. I want to ask you then if you feel that some of these points that Rand Paul, if they're valid, or perhaps they're hidden histrionics on his part, and perhaps this is premature election posturing on his part.
You know, Arthel, that the GOP has a problem when Rand Paul is a spokesperson who is so far to the right of his own party, let alone the American people. Here are the facts. The facts are the Republicans lost the election. We had a year-and-a-half debate.
Okay,
about
we
how
know
to
that.
deal with this.
We know that. We don't want to hear all of that, Bernard.
The American people, three-quarters of them, 76%, want a mix of spending cuts and revenue increases to balance the budget and to avoid these terrible sequester spending cuts. 56% of Republicans also agree that the best way to deal with deficit reduction in our ballooning budget is to have a mix of spending cuts and revenue increases. It seems that the only people in the United States that do not understand that a comprehensive, integrated, balanced approach is necessary is the leadership in Congress.
So are you saying then with that, are you saying
that
with the president perhaps then by having those first responders behind him that he's saying, listen, Congress is not listening to me, they don't want to hear what I'm saying, I'm going to talk directly to the people?
It's about getting real. Let's understand. You have $85 billion of cuts going into effect in less than a week.
Did you answer my
question? It's real.
Bernard, listen to my question. I asked you, do you feel then that the president is, because he thinks that
Absolutely,
Congress...
he's showing reality. He's showing to the American people what is actually going to happen instead of just all of this mindless chatter about trying to protect certain interests and avoid any type of revenue increases.
That's all we get from D.C. is mindless chatter from both sides. Look, I'll say it. I'll say both sides. We have a problem in D.C. We have a huge spending problem. For God's sake,
we know all of that, Dee. So let me ask you this. If the GOP is saying, listen, the drama won't solve the problem, then I ask you, how do you think the president can approach this or solve these spending cuts, or do the Republicans have a better way to avoid this happening come March 1st?
Well, look, I mean, if they can't get together and come up with a compromise, so be it. Let the sequester happen. Let's have a super sequester, because this isn't even enough cuts. They're not the right cuts.
And why do you want to have a sequester? Why do you want to have that?
Because we have to start spending cuts. We have to start this.
So do you care about Americans who will be hurt?
Well, absolutely.
I mean, really, don't you think that Congress, the president, included lawmakers in Washington, should be there to solve the problem and not let this get to this 11th hour
but they're
once
not.
again.
But they're not. So you know what? At least it's something. I mean, you have to start somewhere. There will be cuts.
It is a third-grade way to shortcut and avoid dealing with the very challenges that we have.
Well,
and the American people have been
wanted.
very clear. They want their representatives to come together. I fully endorse using Simpson-Bowles as a starting off point. That's the deficit reduction plan that was put together 2 years ago. We ought to use that as a way, as a benchmark to start actually enacting spending cuts and revenue increases, which is what the economy needs.
Right
it's what the American people want.
Though. We're just taxing revenues.
Well, listen, right
no
now, indeed, I'm not taking sides here. I'm just reading some notes here that the President Obama and the Senate Democrats want to ultimately replace these cuts with a blend of cuts in tax revenue through closing loopholes.
Great.
So that doesn't mean any more taxes.
We're in agreement on that. We definitely need to close the loopholes, but we've got to start cutting it. Everyone's talking about it.
Right.
We've been talking about it. We've heard Congress talk about it forever. Nothing's happened.
Okay.
People just want action.
So where should the cuts come from, Dee Dee? Because let me just tell you that we have a Fox News poll that we took January 15th, 17th this year, last month, and we're talking about government spending today. 83% of those polled said that it's out of control, and only 11% said it's managed carefully. So where should those cuts come from?
I think cuts across the board. I think everyone needs trimmed. They're fat cats in D.C. It's just unbelievable how it's ballooned and how much of a deficit we have and how much debt. Cut across the board. Cut. And if sequester is where we start, so be it. But hopefully it's not the case.
That is taking a meat cleaver or a sledgehammer to the budget is not the proper way to do this. We still have to invest in education. We have to protect our way we travel through the air. We have to make sure our first responders are able to get there. So we have to cut. Do we have to make serious cuts in defense spending? Absolutely. Do we have to make cuts in other programs? Absolutely. But to do it mindlessly because we cannot get together and actually take specific action.
Pick a number and cut across the board everywhere. Everybody needs to be, dealing with this right now, and we're going to with the sequester if something doesn't happen. Hopefully, it'll be a better plan.
What's going to get sequestered?
But at least it's something.
What's going to get sequestered if this actually goes through are Republican representatives in Congress in 2014.
Okay.
I'm telling you, you could lose the House
We'll see
on
what's going to
this
happen.
alone.
It's not about the politics, it's about the people is what I say. Dee Dee Banky, Bernard Whitman, thank you very much for a lively discussion.
Thank you, Rafael.
All right, Rick.